You see, the loudest thing in this world is not your words, not your anger, not your tears, but your silence. Yes, silence. When you stop explaining, when you stop reacting, when you stop proving yourself to the ones who tried to break you, that silence shakes their ego more than your 1,000 words ever could. Let me tell you a secret. The one thing that destroys a manipulator, a narcissist, or an egoistic soul is not your scream, not your revenge, but the absence of you. The mystery of your quietness makes their mind spin in circles. They expect drama, they expect pain, but you give them nothing. And darling, in that nothing, they lose everything. Remember this. The queen never shouts in the court. She sits, smiles, and watches as the fools panic in the chaos of their own thoughts. So today, I'll show you the divine art of silence. That dangerous, silent poison that slowly melts away their pride until they can't take it anymore. And trust me, this will destroy their ego more than any fight you could ever pick. Silence is not emptiness. It is not weakness. It is power. Pure, undiluted, magnetic power. When you choose to be silent in a world that screams for attention, you instantly become rare, mysterious. And remember this, what is rare always becomes valuable. People fear what they cannot predict. They fear what they cannot read. Your silence builds a wall they cannot climb, a puzzle they cannot solve. And this mystery, this mystery controls their minds more than your words ever could. Think of the woman who walks into the room and says nothing. But all eyes turn. Why? Because her silence commands attention. She doesn't need to speak. Her energy speaks louder than words. Her presence alone stirs curiosity. People start wondering, who is she? What is she thinking? Why isn't she talking? The more she stays silent, the more powerful she becomes. Why? Because mystery is the greatest form of control. When they can't predict you, they can't play you. And when they can't play you, they fear you. Imagine the friend who stops replying to unnecessary drama in WhatsApp groups. You know, the one who was always explaining herself, always justifying, always defending? One day, she just stops. No explanations, no messages, no reactions, and suddenly, everyone in that group wonders, why is she quiet? Is she angry? Is she okay? Did we do something wrong? Their minds run wild because her silence left a space. And in that space, their own imagination became the enemy. This is the silent power you carry when you refuse to engage. The power of making them think without you saying a single word. Let's talk about relationships. Every time you argue with someone who disrespects you, you are feeding their ego. They want the argument, they want the reaction, they want your energy. But the day you smile and walk away and say nothing, you flip the entire game. Now they are left alone with their thoughts. Why didn't she fight back? Why is she not angry? Has she moved on? Has she found someone better? These thoughts destroy their peace far more than any insult you could have thrown. And the funny thing? You said nothing. That's the magic. That's the silent weapon you carry without lifting a finger. Even in family life, silence builds mystery. Imagine the daughter who always fights back when scolded. Her parents expect the shouting match. But the day she just listens, nods quietly, and walks away without a word, they are shocked. What's going on in her mind? Why didn't she scream like always? It breaks the usual pattern. It makes them uneasy. And that's where you win. Because when you break patterns with silence, people become uncomfortable. And in that discomfort, you own their attention. At work too, silence is gold. The boss who expects you to beg for promotion, to explain your worth, to prove your value, will be shaken when you choose quiet confidence. When you do your job with excellence and smile silently while others shout and compete, your value rises without you saying a thing. Mystery. Why isn't she desperate? Does she have better offers? Is she leaving? What is she planning? Their thoughts start working harder than your mouth ever could. And you remain calm, untouched, unreadable, unstoppable. Even in friendships, silence makes people nervous. The friend who suddenly becomes distant, not because of anger, but because she knows her worth, will make everyone uncomfortable. They wonder, they gossip, they ask questions, but she says nothing. And that nothing is everything. Because the more you stay away, the more they crave your presence. The more you remain quiet, the more they fear losing you. Mystery controls minds, and silence creates mystery. It's a beautiful circle of quiet power that only the strong can master. Silence is not emptiness. It is not weakness. It is power. Pure, undiluted, magnetic power. When you choose to be silent in a world that screams for attention, you instantly become rare, mysterious. And remember this: what is rare always becomes valuable. People fear what they cannot predict. They fear what they cannot climb, a puzzle they cannot solve. And this mystery controls their minds more than your words ever could. Think of the woman who walks into the room and says nothing, but all eyes turn. Why? Because her silence commands attention. She doesn't need to speak. Her energy speaks louder than words. Her presence alone stirs curiosity. People start wondering, who is she? What is she thinking? Why isn't she talking? The more she stays silent, the more powerful she becomes. Why? Because mystery is the greatest form of control. When they can't predict you, they can't play you. And when they can't play you, they fear you. Imagine the friend who stops replying to unnecessary drama in WhatsApp groups. You know, the one who is always explaining herself, always justifying, always defending. One day, she just stops. No explanations, no messages, no reactions. And suddenly, everyone in that group wonders, why is she quiet? Is she angry? Is she okay? Did we do something wrong? Their minds run wild because her silence left a space, and in that space, their own imagination became the enemy. This is the silent power you carry when you refuse to engage. The power of making them think without you saying a single word. Let's talk about relationships. Every time you argue with someone who disrespects you, you are feeding their ego. They want the argument, they want the reaction, they want your energy. But the day you smile and walk away and say nothing, you flip the entire game. Now they are left alone with their thoughts. Why didn't she fight back? Why is she not angry? Has she moved on? Has she found someone better? These thoughts destroy their peace far more than any insult you could have thrown. Mind Why didn't she scream like always? It breaks the usual pattern. It makes them uneasy. And that's where you win. Because when you break patterns with silence, people become uncomfortable. And in that discomfort, you own their attention. At work too, silence is gold. The boss who expects you to beg for promotion, to explain your worth, to prove your value, will be shaken when you choose quiet confidence. When you do your job with excellence and smile silently while others shout and compete, your value rises without you saying a thing. Mystery. Why isn't she desperate? Does she have better offers? Is she leaving? What is she planning? Their thoughts start working harder than your mouth ever could. And you remain calm, untouched, unreadable, unstoppable. Even in friendships, silence makes people nervous. The friend who suddenly becomes distant, not because of anger, but because she knows her worth, will make everyone uncomfortable. They wonder, they gossip, they ask questions. But she says nothing. And that nothing is everything. Because the more you stay away, the more they crave your presence. The more you remain quiet, the more they fear losing you. Mystery controls minds, and silence creates mystery. It's a beautiful circle of quiet power that only the strong can master. Your energy is too expensive to waste on explanation. You need to understand this truth deeply, like a tattoo on your mind. Every time you open your mouth to explain yourself to someone who has already made up their mind about you, you are spending the most valuable currency you have, your energy. And once that energy leaves you, you don't get it back. You see, energy is not like money that can be earned again tomorrow. Energy spent on the wrong people, on useless clarifications, on defending your worth to those who refuse to see it, is energy wasted forever. You are not on this earth to prove yourself to every person who misunderstands you. You are not required to justify your silence, your distance, your decisions to those who are committed to misunderstanding you. Look at life closely. When you walk into a shop and you know what you want to buy, you pick it. You don't argue with the price tag. You don't stand there asking, why is this bag worth this much? Why is this shoe this price? You either see its worth or you walk away. The shopkeeper doesn't chase you outside to explain why their product is valuable. They stand confidently because they know what they offer. The moment you start chasing people, explaining your worth, you are reducing your own price tag. You are showing desperation. And remember this forever. Desperate energy smells from miles away. People sense it and they start playing with you. You were never meant to be cheap enough to explain yourself to those who can't afford your presence. Even in relationships, this truth shines. A woman who knows her value will not sit on the phone explaining why she needs respect. She will not waste her breath convincing a man why he should treat her right. If he doesn't see her worth, she walks. Silent. Confident. And you know what happens? The man chases. Because suddenly the power shifts. Suddenly he realizes she is not begging for validation. She is not spending her energy explaining herself. She is simply gone. And the fear of her absence teaches him faster than her words ever could. Have you noticed this with the strongest women you know? They don't fight for attention. They don't fight to stay. They know staying silent is louder than any argument. At work too, this law rules. The employee who keeps trying to prove to the boss that she is good enough ends up frustrated and tired. But the one who keeps working in silence, delivering excellence without begging for recognition, becomes mysterious, untouchable. The boss starts to wonder, what is she thinking? Why is she so calm? Has she got other offers? Is she preparing to leave? Suddenly, the quiet confidence makes her priority. You must stop explaining your hard work to those who refuse to notice. Silence is your loudest achievement. Even in friendships, wasting energy on explanation is a trap. You know those friends who act cold, distant, or jealous, and you find yourself texting long paragraphs trying to explain your side, your loyalty, your truth? Stop. The right friend doesn't need paragraphs. They feel your energy. They see your soul. If someone doubts you easily, they are choosing to misunderstand you. And you, Queen, don't have to exhaust your light explaining your purity to the blind. Stay silent. The real ones will see. The fake ones will leave. And let them. In family life, this plays out too. Parents, siblings, relatives, they will judge you, question your choices, ask why you did this or that. You can waste your youth explaining why you didn't marry early, why you left that job, why you travel alone. Or you can smile, nod gently, and live your life without permission slips. Their understanding is not required for your freedom. It is not your duty to explain your dreams to those stuck in old traditions. Your energy is the fuel of your future. Protect it. Silence makes you the prize, not the beggar. When you remain silent, you create distance, and in that distance, you create value. It's the rare diamond that's locked in a glass case that everyone wants to touch, not the cheap trinket thrown on every shelf. You must understand this deeply. When you are always available, always explaining, always offering pieces of yourself to everyone who demands it, you lose your power. You become common, expected, easy to reach, but when you pull back, when you choose silence instead of desperation, you instantly become rare. And rare things are always desired more. People are fascinated by what they cannot have, by what they cannot predict. Your silence feeds their curiosity, their hunger, their imagination. And imagination is a far more dangerous weapon than anything you could ever say. Look at a simple real-life example. Think of that girl in your university class or office who always stays quiet. She doesn't laugh loudly at every joke. She doesn't jump into every conversation. She sits, listens, observes, and everyone around wonders, what is she thinking? Why is she so quiet? Is she shy or confident? What's her story? That curiosity is power. And the moment she speaks, everyone listens. Because silence made her rare. Silence made her valuable. Now imagine the opposite. The girl who talks endlessly, laughs too loud, shares every thought and feeling openly. She becomes predictable, easy, no mystery, no weight. And the world forgets what is easy. Never forget this. When you are silent, you are being remembered in their minds long after you have left the room. Relationships are the greatest battlefield of this truth. When you chase a man, when you beg for attention, when you text endlessly to explain your feelings, you become the beggar. And beggars are never respected, only pitied or ignored. But when you choose silence, when you stop calling, stop texting, stop proving your love, suddenly the game changes. He begins to wonder, why is she not chasing me? Has she moved on? Did she find someone better? Did she stop caring? His ego breaks itself in silence. His mind works harder trying to figure you out than it ever did when you were overgiving. You have now become the prize, the rare treasure that he doesn't know how to reach. And when you are the prize, you make the rules. Even in family life, this truth is alive. When your relatives gossip about you, question your choices, doubt your strength, The natural urge is to fight back, to prove your side. But the powerful woman stays silent. She knows her life will speak louder than her words ever could. She lets her silence create discomfort in their judgment, because silence makes them wonder if you know something they don't. Silence makes them doubt their own assumptions. They will sit in family gatherings thinking, what is she planning? Why is she so quiet? Maybe she knows what she's doing after all. And in this silence, you rise in their minds, not as the black sheep, but as the mystery they can't touch. At work too, silence builds your throne. The employee who brags, gossips, and complains all day becomes part of the noise, forgettable. But the one who works quietly, who smiles calmly in meetings, who delivers without drama, suddenly becomes the one the boss watches. What is she thinking? Is she planning something great? Is she leaving for another company? That silence raises your value without you asking. Because the quiet one always holds a secret, and secrets are priceless. Even with friends, this rule rules. The one who stops explaining why she couldn't make it to every party, who stops justifying why she needs time alone, who stops texting apologies for choosing peace, because the friend they missed most. Because silence makes you missed. Silence makes your presence valuable. They realize too late how bright you were when you are no longer explaining yourself to stay in their lives. Silence kills the manipulator's control game in a way words never can. Manipulators feed on reaction. They thrive on your confusion, your fear, your need to explain, your desire to please. The more you argue, defend, or clarify yourself to them, the more you fuel their control. You think you are solving the misunderstanding, but in reality, you are feeding their power over you. They spin your words, twist your sentences, flip your meanings until you feel weak, helpless, and broken. But the moment you choose silence, their whole game collapses. Because silence gives them nothing to twist, nothing to manipulate, nothing to use against you. You have cut the strings they pull, and now they stand there with nothing in their hands. Think of that toxic friend who always made you feel guilty for not meeting her demands. Every time she called, you rushed to answer. Every time she texted, you sent long explanations. You thought you were being kind, understanding, but no, you were being controlled. You were on her invisible strings, dancing to her selfish tune. The day you stopped replying, the day you chose silence instead of justification, the game changed. She called, you didn't answer. She texted, you stayed quiet. And in that silence, she panicked. Because suddenly she lost her grip on your mind. She didn't know how to make you feel guilty anymore. The control shattered. Your silence broke the chain. Look at manipulative partners in relationships. The partner who gaslights you, who blames you for their mistakes, who makes you question your own mind. They survive on your emotional reactions. They need you to cry, to scream, to argue, to beg. Why? Because every tear, every word, every defense feeds their ego. It tells them they still own your emotions. But the day you stop reacting, the day you sit quietly, look them in the eyes, without a single word, you destroy their weapon. They become powerless. Why isn't she crying? Why isn't she shouting? Why is she silent? Their mind burns with confusion. They cannot control silence. Because silence is for the strong. And manipulative people hate strength they cannot bend. Even in the office, this truth shows itself. That boss who insults you in meetings, who mocks your work to make you feel small, waits for your defense. The moment you argue back, he wins. Because now you're reacting, showing weakness, showing that his words touched you. But the day you smile and stay silent, letting his insults fall to the ground like worthless dust, the power shifts. The room feels your quiet strength. The boss senses the fear. What does she know? Why isn't she breaking? Why is she so calm? You win without a word. Silence made you untouchable. Family is no different. The manipulative relative who loves drama, who twists every family event to make you the villain, expects you to rise in anger. She gossips, she whispers, she provokes. And you stay silent. You show no anger. You offer no explanation. And suddenly, she loses her audience. She looks like a fool talking to herself. Without your reaction, her control game dies. People start wondering, why are you so quiet? Maybe you know the truth. Maybe you are wiser. Your silence becomes your shield and your sword. Even strangers on social media try this game. They post cruel comments, hoping you will explode in defense, hoping to drag you into useless battles. But when you reply with nothing, no comment, no message, no attention, they feel invisible. Their words, meant to hurt, fall dead on the ground. You rob them of the satisfaction. You control the game by refusing to play it. This is the beauty of silence. It starves the manipulator. It suffocates their hunger for control. It leaves them powerless, helpless, small. Only silence makes them regret, loudly. When you go silent, truly silent, you create a space that screams louder in their mind than any words you could have spoken. People are used to noise, explanations, begging, justifications. They expect you to fight, to cry, to defend yourself. But the moment you remove your voice, you remove their control. And that's when the regret begins. Because silence is not emptiness. Silence is presence. And silence is presence. Silence is power. And when you choose silence, they start to hear the sound of their own mistakes, their own cruelty, their own failures, louder than you could ever make them hear through words. Think about that friend who used you, took advantage of your kindness, your time, your care. Every time they needed something, you were there, picking up their calls, fixing their messes, solving their problem. But the day you woke up and decided not to respond, the world shifted for them. You didn't block them. You didn't curse them. You didn't send angry texts. You simply went silent. And that silence wrapped itself around their mind like a storm. Why is she not replying? Did she finally realize what I've been doing? Is she done with me? They scroll through their phone, checking their messages. They wait for your call. They stare at your online status. But nothing comes. That silence forces them to sit alone with their guilt. It forces regret to grow louder and louder until they can no longer escape it. And you said nothing. In relationships, silence has the same deadly strength. When you keep forgiving, explaining, proving your love to someone who does not value you, they feel no fear of losing you. But the day you stop, the day you quietly walk away, no drama, no goodbye speech, no tearful arguments, just silence. That's when their heart skips a beat. That's when their confidence cracks. Is she gone? Has she stopped caring? Did she find someone better? Will she ever come back? Their mind becomes their own worst enemy. Every memory of you plays in their head on repeat. Every moment they ignored you, dismissed you, took you for granted, now burns in their chest like fire, and you are nowhere to be found. Silence is doing what your tears and words never could, making them regret, loudly, deeply. Even in the workplace, this power unfolds. You have a boss or co-worker who doubted your skills, who belittled your efforts, who overlooked your hard work. You wanted to speak up, to defend your worth, to demand respect. But instead, you chose silence. You delivered your work with quiet excellence. You dirtied your work with quiet excellence. You said nothing extra in meetings. You smiled and kept walking. And slowly the office began to notice. The boss started to realize, what if she leaves? What if we lose her? Why is she so calm? Regret creeps into their heart because they know they undervalued you. And now they fear your silence may be a warning. Maybe you have better plans. Maybe you will take your talent elsewhere. The regret grows louder than any speech you could have given. Family too feels this truth. The parent who criticized you for every choice, the sibling who mocked your dreams, the relative who disrespected your independence, they all expected you to fight back, to argue, to defend your life. But you chose silence. You smiled. You walked away. You lived your truth without their approval. And when they sat alone at the dinner table, when the house felt quiet without your laughter, when they saw your success from afar, regret filled the room. They realized what they lost. They remembered every word they shouldn't have said. And they wished they had listened before your silence came. Even in strangers, this lesson is real. The rude shopkeeper, the arrogant stranger who judged you too quickly, they expect anger. But when you meet their insult with silence, they are left awkward, uneasy, regretting their behavior because you gave them no reason to feel righteous. Their guilt rises because your silence was heavier than their words. Silence heals you and hurts them at the same time. When you stop responding, when you finally choose quiet over chaos, your soul starts to breathe again. The weight of explaining, of defending, of justifying slips off your shoulders like old broken chains. You realize that not every insult deserves an answer. Not every lie deserves correction. Not every attack deserves your energy. When you choose silence, you give yourself peace. And you leave them with the noise of their own guilt, confusion, and regret. Silence becomes your medicine and their punishment in the same beautiful moment. Think of the toxic friend who always made you question yourself. You sent long texts trying to clear your name. And every time you felt more drained, more exhausted, more broken. But the day you chose silence, everything changed. No more explaining, no more proving, just quiet distance. You started to feel light, free, powerful. You spent that energy on yourself, on reading, resting, glowing up. And while you healed in silence, she sat there drowning in confusion, wondering why you stopped fighting, wondering if you finally saw her truth. Your silence gave you back your joy and gave her the loudest regret. In relationships, this is even more true. When a partner lies, cheats, disrespects you, they expect drama. They expect tears, shouting, broken words flying across the room. Because that makes them feel powerful. That shows them they still control your emotions. But the day you go quiet, completely quiet, you break their power in half. You start to heal. You realize you don't need to win this battle. You realize your value does not depend on their validation. You start sleeping peacefully. You start walking taller. And all the while, they sit awake at night, wondering where your fire went. Their mind plays the past over and over. Every mistake, every betrayal, and they regret it deeply, loudly, painfully. Your silence soothes you, and it tears them apart. Even at work, this law applies. That boss or co-worker who insulted you, overlooked you, made you feel small, they expect you to react, to argue, to break. But when you stay silent, when you keep showing up with quiet confidence, doing your work without explanation, you begin to heal. You no longer carry the stress of needing to be seen or heard. You become peaceful, focused, unstoppable. And in the background, they begin to notice your silence. They wonder if you have other offers, if you've outgrown them, if you're planning to leave. Your quiet strength becomes their fear. Your peace becomes their panic. With family, it's the same. The critic who always questions your life, who doubts your dreams, who mocks your choices, they expect resistance. They want you to argue, to explain, to defend. But when you smile and walk away, offering nothing but silence, you begin to heal. You stop needing their approval. You start loving your own decisions. Your future becomes clear because the noise is gone. And they sit in their own thoughts, regretting, wondering if they pushed you too far, missing the sound of your voice. Your silence becomes the mirror they can't escape. Even strangers feel this power. The rude man in traffic, the gossiping neighbor, the jealous co-worker. They expect a reaction. They live for drama. But your silence ruins their game. You drive on. You walk past. You smile without a word. And they are left alone, battling their own bad energy. You, on the other hand, heal. You protect your heart. Your mind becomes peaceful. Their negativity cannot touch you anymore. Your silence is your shield and their punishment. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not surrender. Silence is not absence. Silence is the sharpest sword you will ever hold. Because when you learn to use silence wisely, you don't have to shout to be heard. Your quiet becomes the loudest voice in the room. The world has taught you to explain, to convince, to justify, to plead for space, love, respect. But what they never told you is this: the moment you stop explaining is the moment you rise above every game they ever tried to play with you. The moment you go quiet, they start to hear the sound of their own mistakes echoing in their heads, loudly, relentlessly, mercilessly. You must understand the rarest truth of life, that your energy, your time, your words are currency, precious, limited, divine. And if you spend these treasures on the unworthy, the ungrateful, the manipulators and liars, you bankrupt yourself. But when you guard your words, when you wrap yourself in silence like a queen wraps herself in royal robes, you become the prize they can no longer touch. Because the world desires what it cannot have. People chase what is rare. They fear what they cannot read. And they regret what they have lost. Your silence becomes your crown. Your silence becomes your weapon. Your silence becomes the storm that breaks their ego without you lifting a single finger. Think about the lioness. She doesn't roar at every passing animal in the jungle. She moves with grace, calm, supreme confidence, because she knows the jungle already fears her without her making a sound. That is who you are becoming. A woman of power, a woman of presence, a woman who does not waste breath on those who deserve no explanation. Let them wonder where you are. Let them feel your absence like a missing sun. Let them sit awake in the dark night, hearing the silence you left behind as the loudest scream they've ever known. Great men and women in history were remembered not for their endless words, but for the power of their restraint. Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, Mother Teresa. They knew when to speak and when to remain silent. and their silence shook empires. Their quiet resistance broke chains, stronger than steel. You must learn this art, because the weak rush to speak, the desperate scramble to explain, but the strong, they wait, they watch. They let the world reveal itself, and when they speak, every ear turns, every heart listens. Be that woman, be that force, be that legend. And remember this, the people who truly love you will never make you explain your worth. The ones who deserve your presence will never force you to defend your truth. Your silence will never push away the right people. It will only clear the noise of the wrong ones, the fake ones, the jealous ones, the manipulators, the ones who took your kindness for weakness. Silence will make them uncomfortable. Silence will expose them. Silence will choke their games. And you will grow. You will glow. You will rise. Let your success make the noise, they say. But even better, let your silence make the... Let your absence speak louder than your presence ever did. The man who disrespected you will miss you when he realizes no other woman carries your grace. The friend who used you will regret when no one else shows up with your loyalty. The family that doubted you will question themselves when they see your life bloom without their approval. Your silence is the message. Your silence is the revenge. Your silence is the proof. Because in the end, the universe does not reward noise. It rewards energy. It rewards strength. It rewards patience. And patience, my dear, wears the mask of silence. This is how queens move. This is how legends are built. In quiet, in control, in grace. They said, speak now or forever hold your peace. But you know the secret they forgot. When you forever hold your peace, you win forever. So stay quiet, stay calm, stay powerful, and let the world crumble under the weight of the silence they forced you to give.